November 15, 1944. Alethi Atoll, Caroline Islands. Through the periscope of German U-boat U-181, Kapitänleutnant Heinrich Müller watched something that defied every assumption about warfare. Anchored in the massive American naval base spread before him was a concrete barge, 265 feet long, being approached by dozens of small boats, filled with American sailors. What he witnessed next would shatter German understanding of American industrial capacity and psychological warfare. The sailors weren't collecting ammunition or fuel. They were lining up with metal containers, laughing and joking as crew members aboard the barge handed them scoops of ice cream. Ice cream in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from any American city, being distributed like ammunition to frontline combat troops. Müller lowered his periscope in disbelief. In his report to German naval intelligence transmitted 3 days later, he would write words that would reach the highest levels of the Kriegsmarine. The Americans have deployed floating ice cream factories to the Pacific Theater. Their logistics capabilities exceed our most optimistic estimates. What Müller had discovered was one of 3 barge-refrigerated large vessels, the official designation for what American sailors simply called ice cream barges. These concrete behemoths, each costing $1 million, represented something far more dangerous than German intelligence had imagined. Not just American abundance, but American casual abundance. The kind of overwhelming industrial superiority that could dedicate entire ships to luxury food production while simultaneously fighting a global war on 2 fronts. The genesis of psychological warfare through desert had begun 2 years earlier, in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, when the United States Navy faced a crisis of morale management across the vast Pacific Theater. Admiral Chester Nimitz, commanding the Pacific Fleet from his headquarters in Hawaii, received reports that concerned him deeply. American sailors, isolated on remote islands for months at a time, were showing signs of declining morale that threatened combat effectiveness. The solution would prove to be both ingenious and devastating to enemy psychology. Assistant to Under-Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal wrote in a classified memo dated March 10, 1943, that ice cream, in my opinion, has been the most neglected of all the important morale factors. Forrestal made ice cream distribution his highest priority, decreeing that any ship large enough would be fitted with ice cream making equipment. What began as a morale initiative would evolve into one of the war's most effective demonstrations of American industrial might. The U.S. Navy had been serving ice cream aboard ships since 1914, when alcohol was banned from naval vessels. Sailors, deprived of their traditional grog ration, turned to sugar for comfort, and ice cream became the most popular substitute. But World War II transformed this tradition into something unprecedented in military history. By 1944, the Navy operated 468 ice cream machines aboard ships in the Pacific Fleet, consuming 48 million pounds of ice cream mix powder annually. The psychological impact on American forces was immediate and profound. Sailors who had been subsisting on K-rations and canned goods suddenly found themselves enjoying fresh vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry ice cream in combat zones. The message was clear. America cared enough about its fighting men to ship the ingredients and equipment necessary for ice cream production across thousands of miles of enemy-controlled ocean. This wasn't mere sustenance. It was a taste of home that reinforced why they were fighting. But what truly stunned German and Japanese intelligence was the scale of the operation. When a destroyer escort rescued downed American pilots, they would often hold them for ransom, demanding payment in ice cream from the aircraft carriers before returning the aviators. The USS Lexington, even as she was sinking after torpedo damage during the Battle of the Coral Sea, saw her crew raiding the ship's ice cream freezer, eating vanilla ice cream from their helmets while sitting in life rafts. These stories, when they reached enemy intelligence services, painted a picture of American abundance that seemed almost fictional. The ice cream barges represented the ultimate evolution of this philosophy. Each barge refrigerated large was a floating ice cream factory, capable of producing 10 gallons every 7 minutes, 500 gallons per 8-hour shift, storing 2,000 gallons of finished product, and maintaining temperatures of -15 degrees Fahrenheit. They were concrete vessels, 265 feet long by 48 feet wide, with 130,000 cubic feet of refrigerated storage space. These weren't simple ice cream parlors. They were complete cold storage facilities that also held 1,500 tons of frozen meat and 500 tons of fresh vegetables, eggs, and cheese. The construction of these concrete barges was itself a marvel of wartime engineering. Built using Ferrocement technology developed during World War I's steel shortages, the barges employed a mesh of reinforcing steel bars encased in concrete. This construction method allowed shipbuilders to create vessels with the strength of steel ships while conserving precious war materials. The concrete hulls, 17 feet 7 inches deep, were thick enough to provide excellent insulation for refrigerated storage, while remaining surprisingly seaworthy when towed by tugboats. The barges were towed by tugboats to advanced Pacific bases, playing what sailors jokingly called the Mr. Softy song as they approached shore. Lines of excited American servicemen would form along the beaches, waiting for their ration of fresh ice cream. The sight of these floating dessert factories became legendary throughout the Pacific theater, but their true impact was psychological warfare on an unprecedented scale. Ulithi Atoll, where Captain Lieutenant Mueller made his shocking discovery, had become the largest naval base in the world by late 1944. Spotted on a map by Admiral Nimitz himself, the Coral Atoll's 200-square-mile lagoon could accommodate over 700 ships simultaneously. The Seabees had transformed this remote speck of coral into a floating city, complete with dry docks, repair facilities, fuel storage, and recreational amenities. Among these amenities were the ice cream barges, anchored like floating beacons of American abundance. German naval intelligence, the Marine-Nachrichtendienst, had spent considerable resources throughout the war attempting to understand American logistics capabilities. Their agents reported on American steel production, aircraft manufacturing, and shipping capacity, but nothing in their intelligence estimates had prepared them for the reality of ice cream barges. The implications were staggering and deeply demoralizing to German leadership. The intelligence implications extended beyond simple morale assessment. German analysts recognized that any nation capable of dedicating specialized vessels to ice cream production while fighting a global war possessed industrial capacity that dwarfed their own estimates. The aluminum required for ice cream machinery, the electricity for refrigeration systems, the specialized compressors and cooling equipment, all represented strategic materials that Germany was desperately conserving. America was using these materials for dessert production. Oberkommando der Marine received Captain Lieutenant Mueller's report in December 1944, just as Germany was launching its final offensive in the Ardennes. While German forces were measuring fuel by the liter, rationing every gallon for their desperate winter offensive, American forces were producing thousands of gallons of ice cream daily for purely morale purposes. The mathematical impossibility of defeating such abundance became undeniable. German submarine commanders reported similar observations throughout the Pacific theater. U-boat patrols observed American supply ships arriving at forward bases, loaded with materials that seemed incomprehensible to German thinking. Ships carrying not just ammunition and fuel, but ice cream mix, soda fountain equipment, and even Coca-Cola bottling plants. The psychological impact on German naval personnel was devastating. They began to understand they weren't fighting a military force. They were fighting an industrial civilization capable of treating luxuries as necessities. The ice cream operations aboard individual American warships provided additional evidence of this overwhelming abundance. The USS Enterprise, America's most decorated aircraft carrier, operated a complete ice cream parlor that served fresh desserts to her crew of 2,700 sailors. Fighter squadrons returning from combat missions over Japan could rely on ice cream as a routine reward, not a special occasion treat. This casual availability of luxury foods in combat zones spoke to production capabilities that German intelligence found impossible to quantify accurately. The intelligence reports reaching Berlin painted a picture that German leadership struggled to accept. American industrial production had reached levels that made German wartime economy appear almost primitive by comparison. While Germany was converting civilian automobiles into military vehicles, America was building specialized ice cream barges from scratch. While German sailors received black bread and ersatz coffee, American sailors enjoyed fresh ice cream in flavors that German civilians hadn't tasted in years. The broader context of American Pacific logistics made the ice cream operations even more impressive to German observers. The United States was simultaneously maintaining supply lines across 8,000 miles of ocean, supporting over 3 million military personnel in the Pacific Theater, and conducting the largest amphibious operations in history. Within this massive logistical framework, ice cream distribution received the same careful attention as ammunition resupply and fuel delivery. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commanding the German submarine fleet, received classified reports describing American logistics capabilities that seemed to defy military logic. American factories were producing 1 aircraft every 5 minutes, 1 ship per day, 3 Liberty ships weekly. But it was the ice cream production that truly revealed the depth of American industrial capacity. A nation that could spare the aluminum, steel, rubber, and electrical equipment necessary to build floating ice cream factories, while simultaneously producing the world's largest air force and navy possessed resources that German planners had never imagined. The psychological warfare aspect was intentional, though American leadership may not have fully realized its impact. The ice cream barges became symbols of American invincibility, proof that the United States could fight a global war while maintaining peacetime luxuries for its military forces. Japanese prisoners of war, interrogated after capture, frequently mentioned the shock of discovering American ice cream operations. They had been told that America was a soft, decadent nation, unprepared for the hardships of war. Instead, they found an enemy that had industrialized comfort itself. The supply chain supporting ice cream operations stretched across the American continent and revealed the true scope of wartime coordination. Dairy farms in Wisconsin produced milk powder that traveled by rail to processing plants in California, where it was combined with sugar from Louisiana refineries and artificial flavoring from chemical plants in New Jersey. This mixture was packaged, shipped across the Pacific through submarine-infested waters, and delivered to concrete barges, where it was transformed into fresh ice cream for distribution to combat troops. The logistical implications were equally stunning. Each ice cream barge required continuous resupply of ice cream mix, sugar, milk powder, flavoring, and the fuel necessary to power the refrigeration equipment. The supply chain supporting these operations stretched back to dairy farms in Wisconsin, sugar refineries in Louisiana, and chemical plants producing artificial flavors. American cargo ships dedicated precious cargo space to ice cream supplies while crossing submarine-infested waters, demonstrating priorities that German naval intelligence found incomprehensible. American crews operating the ice cream barges understood their unique mission extended beyond food service. They were ambassadors of American abundance, living proof that their nation could provide luxury amenities in the most remote combat zones. The psychological boost provided to American forces was measurable in combat effectiveness reports, with units that regularly received ice cream rations showing higher morale scores and better battlefield performance than those subsisting on standard field rations alone. The contrast with German logistics was stark and demoralizing. By late 1944, German submarines were rationing not just fuel and ammunition, but basic foodstuffs. Submarine crews subsisted on black bread, canned meat, and ersatz coffee made from roasted barley. The idea of fresh ice cream seemed as fantastic as science fiction. American submarine crews, meanwhile, enjoyed ice cream made fresh aboard their vessels or resupplied from ice cream barges during patrols. The industrial mathematics were undeniable. America was producing 67% of the world's oil, 50% of global manufacturing output, and maintaining agricultural surpluses large enough to supply ice cream ingredients to military forces worldwide. Germany, by contrast, was experiencing critical shortages of everything from aviation fuel to rubber tires. The gap wasn't just quantitative, it was qualitative. America had achieved such overwhelming production capacity that luxuries became standard equipment for its military forces. Individual stories from ice cream barge operations revealed the human dimension of this logistical triumph. Sailors would write letters home describing their amazement at finding fresh strawberry ice cream served on remote Pacific atolls. Marines preparing for amphibious assaults could rely on ice cream rations as normal preparation, not extraordinary treats. The casual nature of these luxury distributions sent clear messages about American industrial capacity to anyone observing the operations. The 3 ice cream barges, operating primarily in the Central Pacific Theater, served American forces from Mislithi to Okinawa. They were manned by specially trained crews who understood that their mission was as much psychological as nutritional. The sight of American sailors enjoying fresh ice cream while Japanese defenders on nearby islands subsisted on rice and whatever fish they could catch sent a clear message about which side possessed the resources to sustain prolonged warfare. The recreational facilities at Ulithi complemented the ice cream operations in demonstrating American priorities. The base featured baseball fields, a 1,200-seat theater, a bandstand for live music, and even a chapel. These amenities, combined with the ice cream barges, created an environment that more closely resembled a stateside naval base than a combat zone. German intelligence officers studying captured photographs of Ulithi struggled to comprehend military operations that included such elaborate recreational provisions. The barges also served a broader logistical function, carrying frozen meat and fresh vegetables alongside their ice cream operations. But it was the ice cream that captured imaginations and intelligence attention. German agents in neutral countries reported American newspapers celebrating the ice cream barges as symbols of American industrial prowess. Time magazine featured photographs of sailors lined up for ice cream distribution, images that were studied carefully by German intelligence analysts trying to understand American morale and logistics. American innovation in mobile ice cream production extended beyond the concrete barges to include smaller-scale operations throughout the Pacific Theater. B-17 Flying Fortress crews discovered they could make ice cream by strapping cans of mixed ingredients to their aircraft and allowing engine vibration and high-altitude cold to churn the mixture during bombing missions. This improvised ice cream production demonstrated the lengths to which American forces would go to maintain comfort standards even during combat operations. The intelligence gathered by German naval observers revealed the true scope of American abundance in devastating detail. American forces in the Pacific were consuming 7.5 million gallons of fuel daily, while receiving 8.25 million gallons. Actually building reserves during offensive operations, they were producing ice cream at rates that exceeded German production of synthetic rubber. The Red Ball Express supply operation alone burned more fuel daily than entire German army groups received monthly. Japanese intelligence services, sharing information with their German allies, provided additional confirmation of American capabilities that defied Axis understanding. Japanese naval officers reported American aircraft carriers equipped with soda fountains, ice cream parlors, and even small restaurants, serving meals that Japanese officers hadn't enjoyed since before the war began. The cultural and psychological implications were as devastating as the military ones. The technological sophistication of the ice cream barges impressed German engineers who studied captured intelligence reports. The refrigeration systems maintained precise temperature control across massive cargo spaces. The ice cream production equipment operated with industrial efficiency, and the electrical systems powering these operations consumed more electricity than entire German cities received during wartime rationing. This casual use of advanced technology for luxury food production revealed industrial capabilities that German leadership found impossible to counter. The ice cream barges became legendary among American forces, inspiring songs, stories, and a morale boost that military psychologists would later recognize as crucial to sustained combat effectiveness. Soldiers and sailors who knew that ice cream was waiting at their next base thought with confidence that their nation possessed unlimited resources and genuine concern for their welfare. This psychological advantage translated directly into combat effectiveness and battlefield success. By early 1945, German naval intelligence had compiled reports that painted a comprehensive picture of American industrial capacity that German leadership found difficult to accept. The ice cream barge program alone represented an investment of $3 million, equivalent to $51 million in modern currency, dedicated entirely to morale and luxury food production. This was money spent on dessert, while Germany was melting down church bells to produce ammunition. The final intelligence reports reaching German headquarters in the war's closing months described American operations that seemed to exist in an alternate universe of abundance. American forces were discarding supplies that German forces would fight battles to obtain. Ice cream that German soldiers could only dream of was being distributed daily to American troops as routine ration supplements. The mathematical impossibility of competing with such abundance became clear to German planners who understood logistics. The ice cream barges continued operating until the war's end, serving American forces throughout the Pacific Theater. Their crews took pride in their unique mission, understanding that they were providing more than dessert. They were demonstrating American industrial supremacy to both allies and enemies, proving that the United States possessed resources so vast that luxury food production could be maintained alongside the largest military buildup in human history. Admiral Chester Nimitz, reflecting on the war's logistics in his memoirs, wrote that the ice cream barges represented something quintessentially American: the belief that military service didn't require unnecessary sacrifice of comfort when abundance made comfort possible. This philosophy, foreign to German and Japanese military thinking, reflected fundamental differences in how democratic and totalitarian societies approached warfare and the treatment of their military personnel. The German naval officers who observed these operations reported to their superiors that American logistics capabilities exceeded their most optimistic estimates by factors they couldn't calculate. The United States wasn't just winning the war through superior production. It was demonstrating surplus capacity so vast that resources could be dedicated to luxuries while maintaining overwhelming military advantage. This revelation demoralized German leadership, who finally understood the true scale of American industrial might. The ice cream barges served their final missions in August 1945, distributing ice cream to American forces preparing for the invasion of Japan. When Japan surrendered, ending the need for Operation Downfall, the barges were among the first units to receive the news. Their crews celebrated with ice cream parties that would have seemed impossible to German sailors who had spent the war years subsisting on ersatz food and dwindling rations. Post-war analysis revealed that the ice cream barge program had achieved objectives beyond simple morale improvement. It had demonstrated to allies and enemies alike that American industrial capacity was so vast that luxury production could continue alongside military production without strain. It had provided American forces with psychological advantages that translated into battlefield effectiveness. Most importantly, it had shown the world that democratic societies possessed resources and priorities that totalitarian regimes couldn't match or understand. The legacy of the ice cream barges extended beyond World War II into the Cold War, when American abundance again served as psychological warfare against communist societies. The Berlin airlift included ice cream among the supplies flown into the blockaded city, demonstrating that American logistics could deliver luxuries where Soviet logistics couldn't deliver necessities. The message remained consistent. American industrial capacity was so vast that comfort was standard, not exceptional. Today, military historians recognize the ice cream barges as symbols of American logistic superiority that helped win World War II. They represented the marriage of industrial capacity and psychological warfare, proving that abundance itself could be a weapon more demoralizing to enemies than conventional armaments. In the vast Pacific theater, these floating ice cream factories delivered a simple message. America possessed resources so overwhelming that luxuries became standard equipment, while enemies rationed necessities. The German naval intelligence officers who first reported on American ice cream operations could never have imagined the full scope of what they were observing. They were witnessing the emergence of a military-industrial complex capable of maintaining civilian standards of living for military personnel while fighting the largest war in human history. It was a demonstration of power that totalitarian regimes, despite their rhetoric about strength and sacrifice, could never match or fully comprehend. The ice cream barges of World War II remain unique in military history. Weapons of psychological warfare that fired scoops instead of shells, delivered morale instead of explosives, and proved that American abundance was itself a form of military superiority that enemies couldn't counter or ignore. In the end, they helped demonstrate that wars aren't won by nations willing to sacrifice the most, but by nations capable of providing the most while still achieving total victory.